Good afternoon again, everybody. I hope you're all relaxed and ready for another session. Now we have Terry Carney talking to us during this session. And she's the manager of the Skibbereen Heritage Centre. And she presided over a number of very significant projects, and probably the one that's of most use to genealogists is the West Cork Graveyard project. And they managed to put together a database of over 100,000 graveyard inscriptions from that area. Now, I've used it myself, and even though we'll say the people I was looking for were far from Skibbereen, they were in the Bear Peninsula, I managed to find the two people that I was looking for in that database. So it's a fantastic piece of work, very hard for anybody, we'll say, to go into a cemetery cold because they know an ancestor is buried there, and walk around trying to read the inscriptions and find it. But the 100,000 inscription database is just a fantastic resource for people who are kind of getting down to do serious research. So Terry Carney now will give you a presentation about the Heritage Centre and some of its work.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very, very much for asking me here today. I have to admit, I feel like a bit of a charlatan because I'm the genealogy dunce of the class. You know the way we can carry all the generations in your head? I'm not one of those people. I can only do one generation at a time, so I'm very fortunate to work with an incredible woman here, Margaret, who should be doing this talk. But so just a little bit of background, if you don't mind, about how we came to do this. Can you hear me? No, okay, 1 second, I'll manage this yet. Okay, hear me now? Yeah. Excellent. A little bit of background about how we ended up doing this, and some of the other projects, and then I'll do a little bit of a talk through, and maybe just a few stories that we've encountered over the years, and then, as Zoe did, I'll go on live on the website and show you how to manipulate it, because there's all different ways to manipulate the database to give you different ways, as she displayed earlier as well. So a little bit of background first. So this is our 25th anniversary this year, and so there's been a lot of retrospectives. It was originally opened as a Lough visitor centre. Lough is a local saltwater lake, and it's the first marine nature reserve in Europe. And this is an era when they were pulling down the European Regional Development Funds, and they thought, oh, it'd be a great idea to have one of these centres down at Lough. There was a bit of fuss about the one up at Mullaghmore, and then they decided to bring it into Skibbereen, and so it opened as the Lough Visitor Centre. It was a group of different organisations came together. I won't come into it. Dorcas was involved at the time, so that's Sheila D and myself back in 2000, and that's me in the same dress this year. I said, somebody excited, I said, do you know I still have that same dress? So I came into work wearing the same dress for the crack. So it started off as that, but it soon became obvious, almost the minute we opened the door. There was a very, very small famine exhibition, and it became obvious that it was the famine that was people's primary interest. So, of course, all the money was spent, so we had great fun trying to put in a new famine exhibition and rejig the whole thing, which we did. And genealogy was one of the things. People were coming and going, do you have anything? And I just felt awful, because here's people come all the way from America, Australia and everything, come into the Skibbereen and ask me, and I had nothing. So a very, very fortunate, it's the Famine Story exhibition. We've expanded several times. I'm not sure if any of you have been to see it, but it was worth seeing. And we expanded that out then as well. Myself and a colleague did a book on it, and we also have a walking trail app that you can walk around Skibbereen and follow a trail and so on. But back to the genealogy, so I was floundering around those first couple of years trying to desperately learn about genealogy myself. And I'm very fortunate that this woman over here came to work with me in 2002, and boy, have I not let go of her. So Margaret is from Cork City, and she came down, she had an interest in genealogy. So I'm a fierce woman for just trying things. So I said, look, we'll get on to what's a good record source? And she said 1901 census. So I got a bit of sponsorship and bought microfiche rolls from the archives. And we digitised them ourselves there those first few years before the archives did them. So at least when people were coming, we had something to give them. Of course, National Archives did those then. So we swiveled and went around to local parish records. So again, we were trying to provide something, so I was around the place, sweet-talking parish priests. That was great fun. But we did more of those, and then of course Irish Genealogy put them up. So we just kept moving as demanded by people, as we think. So Margaret has helped thousands and thousands and thousands of people over the years, and I've been there to observe it, and all I am is an enabler, to be honest with you. But it was getting to the ridiculous stage. This woman was 1 and 2, and 3 o'clock in the morning, I saw an email one morning. 3 o'clock in the morning she was sending emails because the deluge of inquiries were coming in. It was just impossible. So we limited now to in-person consultations. But to make it more accessible to people, we created a series of genealogy podcasts. So for people can go ahead and listen, and because I'm the dunce of the class, she did it on my family. So we did a series of 5 podcasts, and I'll show you them, they're up on our website. So at least there's different things for people now that they can just go on the website and listen to this themselves as well, and it gives a list of all the sources. So just between the famine and the genealogy, we've met hundreds of thousands of immigrants over the years and of the diaspora. And just a few of them, seeing as this is your interest, just some of them I thought just to share a couple of stories before we go back to that. So one of the cohorts that we get back a lot are descendants of the famine orphans. And again, I'm not sure how much, if everybody knows about that, but this was a scheme that ran between 1848 and 1850, where over 4,000 Irish little girls, aged between 14 and 18, were shipped off to Australia, basically as breeders. And these little girls, as you can imagine, did not have good outcomes, and we've met many, many thousands of their descendants. This one, Julia, headed off at 16, and Skibbereen, outside of Dublin, sent the most girls of any other workhouse. They sent 110 girls. So, like many of the girls, she had a short and difficult life in Australia and died aged 35 of gangrene of the eye. Doesn't sound very nice. So her descendant, Lucinda Kennedy, first came here in 2017. That's the top photo. And the poor woman bawled her way through the exhibition. She was so overwhelmed by this and about the idea of this little young girl, the 16-year-old, going off on her own. And she was so overwhelmed and so taken by the whole thing, she decided to move to Ireland. And she moved to Tipperary in 2018, and then she brought her brother over the following year for a visit. Another descendant, Jeff, another common, he comes back over and over again, Jeff and his wife. This is a photo from 2015. And Jeff's great-great-grandmother came at age 19, a bit older, and married well, married an Irish mariner. And he went on actually to have quite a big business, and he became a member of Parliament. And he actually, there's a Cummins clause named in his honour and introduced into law legislation for the benefit of the poorer families. But Mary herself, the little orphan girl, his wife, even though she was illiterate, she also worked on behalf of the poor and became, as you see there, the widow and fatheress in Ballarat. But even she, who made a good marriage and had a relatively good life, died aged just 36 of kidney failure. Like these little girls, when they arrived, they were physically and emotionally wrecked, you know. One more, this one, Jane, we have her as part of our exhibition actually. She was only 14, they think, when she arrived. She didn't know what age she was. She thought she had 2 brothers, but she wasn't sure, but she never saw them again. She married an Englishman, John Constable, in 1852. Apparently he said, "Will you marry me, Jenny?" And she said, "Bad cess to you, I will." Very romantic proposal. Anyway, she went off and married him, and they had a long life. As you can see, here she is as an old lady. Their first child died on the Ballarat goldfields, drowned in a puddle, aged 2, but they went on to have 8 more. So she lived to a good age and died after a fall, but even she was not unaffected. When I went researching her, I found a couple of records where she had disappeared from home, and they put up notices saying, "Can somebody find this woman? She has displayed symptoms of insanity." So no wonder the poor woman did. But that's just, you know, Jane's granddaughter Judith has visited many times, and we've met many more of her descendants. So it's just one cohort of people that we meet on a regular basis. A lot of the diaspora and the immigrants bring in relics or artifacts as well, and this one particularly tickled my fancy because it was a bone rosary, and they wanted to bring it up to St. Patrick's Cathedral to get it blessed, which would have been the same cathedral it would have been blessed in first day. And a lot of photos, an awful lot of photos handed in over the years. And I think in some of them, particularly that right-hand one there, look at the older man, I think you can see the famine in their faces. A lot of these are famine descendants, and my God, you can see it in them. And a huge number of photos of the mammy. They all took a photo of the mammy with them. So I have a whole collection of mammy photos. In some of them, the mammy is dead, because they like to photograph dead people in the 19th century, but I've given you 2 live ones today. We've also had a lot of very interesting documents handed in, and this one really tickled my fancy again, but again, very, very serious. So this is an example of chain immigration. So the first daughter went off to America, sent the money for the second daughter, and the second daughter wasn't sending the money for the third daughter. And this is the parents writing to the second daughter saying, come here, send on the money. And it seems they were illiterate, so they obviously got someone in the village to write the letter for them. So it's written in this really flowery language. Dear daughter, it is astonishing to us to think that you can remain so long silent and without making the inquiry about us as to whether we are alive or dead. Dear daughter, we are sorry to inform you that we've never heard from Mary, that's the good daughter who sent the money back, because she's not a bit well off, as her husband is out of employment. Her husband was out of work. This is a matter that has given us a great deal of uneasiness, as of course we expected that she would be of some service to us, or at least to her sister that she left after her, the third sister that this woman was supposed to have sent the money to. It is astonishing the difference there is between some children in their behaviour to them who toiled and laboured for them. Emotional blackmail is not a new construct. So this, they go on to say, you know, going on about the daughter Margaret. She said you promised to send for her and she would repay you with interest. It is a hardship she should be left behind. She wants nothing except the price of her passage. But Julia and Dudley Driscoll, like this is 1859, just post-famine in Skibbereen, which wasn't much better than during the famine, and this was a deadly serious business. You know, that second daughter had broken the contract she was supposed to send on. Quite a few diaries handed in, very interesting. I've published some of these with redacted, and it's very interesting, the legalese, and also that it was the contract between the parents rather than the children. Also, some of the artifacts we have on display have created links between people. So this is a writing slope we have as part of our famine exhibition, and it was given to 3 local doctors it was given by 3 local doctors to a local miller, James H. Swanton, for his work during the famine. And one of the doctors was Dr. Haddon, who was an incredible man, and these are his 2 descendants, distant cousins. And you can see, look at her, just touching it with reverence, you know, that there's a physical link to the ancestor. And obviously Margaret put these disparate cousins in touch with each other. Another one linked through the same one, beautiful, beautiful man, Brett Adams from Canada, came in and just sort of said, well, my ancestor left me here. And I said, what's his name? And he said, well, James H. Swanton. And I said, oh, come on away in here. And he was so moved by the slope. You can see it again in his face. And the following year, he brought back all his family and met some of the local family and had a nice cup of tea and rum cake. But that man keeps in touch the whole time. Like once these people make a link, they are loyal and they follow us on social media and they're always in touch with us, and it's really gratifying, to be honest with you. I suppose probably the most famous person she's helped would be David Cornwell, nom de plume Jean Le Carré, the middle man in the photo here. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful man. Walked in the door one day and said his grandmother was from the area. He had been more or less raised by her, and he had a great graw for her, and he wanted to find out where she was, and Margaret found out where she was, found local relatives for him, and as a result of that he got Irish citizenship and died an Irish citizen, and apparently he wrapped himself in the Irish flag. But a beautiful man, and kept in touch up to his death, sent on books and so on. And of course he died shortly afterwards, and Marion Finucane interviewed him on RT radio, and he said, look how much this meant. And then she subsequently interviewed Margaret after he had died, and Margaret was one of the last interviews that she did before she died. So all of this stuff goes around and round, but a beautiful man. We've also had Bing Crosby, lots and lots of others, lovely Maura White, works in NASA, and again, Margaret found her local family, has brought her family back, and every now and then I'll just get an email from NASA saying, just sending you a photo, I'm thinking of you, you know, it's lovely. Lots of strange coincidences. So this is one that really tickled my fancy. So we helped 3 US colleges, we'll talk about that in a minute, to come to Skibbereen on study abroad programs. And this is one of them, the University of Maryland. They come every year since 2015 now, and they do an archaeological dig. And I found them 3 different sites around Skibbereen, and the slide on the right hand side is the site we're on now. And so they started a couple of years ago, and I was going down to see them one day, and Margaret said, oh, come down for the spin. So I said, great, come on away down. My wonderful colleague. So we got into the car and we went down, and I was talking to Steve, the professor, and I was saying, do you know who the people were? And he said, yeah, we were after finding all that out. They were McCarthy's, and they were evicted, and Margaret's head did a 180-degree swivel. And she said, what town land are we in? And he said, Lackahan. She said, I know them, I have them, they were in touch with me 2 weeks ago. And so they were. The same family, that's the man on the right hand side from Wales, visited before and after their excavation. And the artefacts that they found belonging to the family, again, I think the faces show it all. And I think the little toy, you see the 2 little heads, porcelain heads of a child's toy, some ancestor of theirs, but they were able to tell the whole story because the dresser had been pushed down, you know, about the eviction and the whole lot. Very, very interesting. Oh, another weird coincidence, this is quite recently. So Jeremiah O'Donovan Rassa was from Skibbereen, or came to Skibbereen during the famine, and he came to his cousin's husband, Mortimer Downing, Morty as he was known, to work in his shop. So a couple of years ago now, the guy on the left-hand side with the beard came in and said, hi, I'm Tom Downing, and I'm a descendant of Mortimer Downing. And I was saying, oh, you know the connection with Rassa? And he said, yeah, we had a little chat, and he went into the exhibition. Another half an hour later, the guy on the right came in, and he said, hi, I'm Rassa Cole, my great-great-grandfather was Jeremiah O'Donovan Rassa, and I went, I said, your cousin's in the exhibition. So, like I said, some very strange coincidences. And one for myself, I couldn't resist putting this in. So this is my grandfather on my mother's side. I never met him, but I'd love to have. Apparently he died when I was 1, and I was a great pet of his. And there were 3 brothers in the family, Mick the priest, the long fella, and the doctor. And anyway, some of the family went to Australia, and one day Margaret was helping this gentleman and young man in the middle. He came up and she said, I think this is one of yours. So I went over, and it was a descendant of my granduncle. So I rang my other cousin, who was a descendant of the 3rd brother, and we brought them in. So we have Mick the priest. I think you can guess which is the descendant of the long fella. And Con the doctor. But again, the 3 faces, it just, you know, we could just picture the 3 brothers somewhere saying, whoa, that took a bit of effort, but it was worth it, you know. And of course, we've hoovered up a great proportion of these stories in our Diaspora Stories project, which I'll talk about when I go onto the website, because people were coming, telling us these incredible stories. And they're also coming, a lot of people come and they never find where their ancestor is from, but they come back just as a mark of respect. And I wanted something for them to leave as a legacy of that. So I came up with this idea of the Diaspora Stories. So they write their story, I scan it, put it up on the website, and we put it up on under the ancestor's name. So then it enables people with common ancestor to get in touch with each other. And this is Google searchable. I'll show you how it works in a minute. But it was just a way of hoovering up all these stories. So the graveyards. So yeah, we're all big graveyard fans. We're all big graveyard fans at Skibbereen Heritage Centre. And many years ago, I want to say 2005, Margaret, around then. Yeah. Anyway, I get these rushes of blood to the head, which is, I'm very lucky I have a team that say, oh God, what's she after planning up now? And they follow it, so it's great. But I got a rush of blood to the head and said, you know, would it be great to do stuff with graveyards? And Margaret and William, who is not officially staff of Skibbereen Heritage Centre, but he may as well be. Fantastic local volunteer, member of the Historical Society. So there was myself, Margaret, two others, Patricia and Kevin. So anyway, we started surveying local graveyards. This is before Irish Historic Graves. So we surveyed 9 local historic graveyards, and it was great crack. It was great fun. So what we also did is we asked people to come in for open days. So we recorded what people knew about uninscribed headstones, about people who were in the graves and weren't recorded. So all this soft information that gets so easily lost. So those 9 graveyards, we would have continued it, but then Irish Historic Graves came online. It was, so we said we'd step back from that. But I should have said, this was supported by the Heritage Council, and we were very, very grateful for that. And William, we call him Brainy William, by the way, is an IT fella. And a bit of sweet talking, he created a database for us. So those 9 data were put up on the website, and I'll show you how that works in a minute. And Cork County Council very kindly sponsored printing little booklets of the results as well. I'm a great woman for a printed book myself. And so those booklets then were given to each parish, and they were given to all the local libraries as well. But like I said, the website is live as well. So then after that, my next fit of Tashby was doing signs at the graveyards. So we said we had all this information, it would be really good to map it. So there's a very small team of us in Skibbereen Heritage Centre, basically myself, Margaret and Barry, and William as a volunteer, and this is Barry here. So we mapped the graveyards and then plotted and spent many, many hours crawling around graveyards. It was great fun. So we put up the graveyard signs, which are hugely popular. Anytime I go to one of these graveyards, I'm so gratified to see the grass underneath where the sign is so well worn, you know, so people are using them. Because, you know, on a website, sometimes people don't have Wi-Fi or whatever. So then, during lockdown, I got another rush of blood to the head, and we were furloughed for 2 years, we were closed, so I decided I'd start making video tours. And went around, I was telling Eddie, 3, 4, 5 o'clock, I wanted to get the morning light on the headstones, you know, and I was doing it in May, so it was very bright, very early. So I was wandering around graveyards, sometimes in my dressing gown, I have to admit, because it was a local graveyard, and would you believe I met another local woman in her dressing gown too at 4 o'clock in the morning in this graveyard, I couldn't believe it. But anyway, so I did a variety of different graveyard tours, and again, one of the most gratifying things about this was my post lady at the time. I remember she came to the door one day, and one of the graveyards I did was Cara, and she said, "Oh Terry, I have to tell you, my neighbour below is so delighted that you put up the Cara graveyard." And I said, "Oh, thanks very much," you know. And his wife had died the month before, and he was going illegally to the graveyard to visit her grave, and he was stopped by the guards, and he was stopped. But he watched this video every day, and it made him feel close to his wife. And I kind of thought, if nothing else, that was worth doing the video for, you know. Anyway, so then the bigger project, the burial register project, started off one day. I was up in the local area office, the Cork Council area office, and saw this big pile of books over in the corner. I was like, they look really interesting. So I went over and asked, "What are these like?" And they said, "Burial registers." And I went, "Oh, has anybody digitised these?" And she said, "No." And I went, "Oh, okay." So I got on to my supervisor in the council, and I said, "Could I borrow a few of these, and could we start doing it?" He said, "Knock yourself out." So I said, "Okay." So William, bless him, I'd say he's so regretting it now, but I went and did another bit of sweet talking and saying, "William, is there any way you could start to transmogrify the website so we could do burial registers instead?" So with a bit of grumbling, he said yes, and he did. So we started this burial register digitisation, and this is a long, slow, painful process. There's only a tiny team of us. We only get to do it for a couple of months a year, but those couple of months, my God, we go at it full whack. So it's several stages. So it involves me sweet talking the registers out of the registrars to start with. Sometimes they come into the area office, but quite often I have to meet the registrars themselves. I've been interviewed a couple of times for my graveyard credentials before they hand them over. So we borrow the register then for a week, 10 days, depending on how many registers. Barry, then my colleague, photographs it, enhances it in Photoshop, enter it into a database, and then we link the image of the page to the data record. And so we've been doing this, and after we did West Cork, I went back up to the same guy who said, knock yourself out. I went back up and I said, do you think I could get some more? And he said, oh God, yeah, where do you want to go next? And I was like, oh, over there. So we started going outside of the local area, and then once the council saw that that this was worthwhile and that there was a massive thing coming, they allowed me to keep on my staff over the winter. So this was in our spare time. We were doing it up until this time. There's no spare time in Skibbereen Heritage Centre, by the way. So over the last, I suppose, 5 winters, we've concentrated on it for the few months of the winter. Again, very limited period. And, you know, how do you eat an elephant? A bite at a time. As Tony said, we have just short of 100,000 records from 143 graveyards all around West Cork. I think if you'd said to me first day this is what it was going to be, I'd have run a mile. Definitely William would have run a mile. But it is hugely gratifying because every year we do one upload. We work on it all over winter and then we upload. And the response when we upload is extraordinary. And a lot of people will come on and say, oh, thanks very much, I found my grandfather for the first time, or I found whatever. And, you know, that's what it's all about, isn't it? You know. So I'll show you how to manipulate that and how to work with it in just a minute when I go on live. So that's the burial register. So all of this is accidental. This is not our remit to do this. We weren't opened for this, but it's just simply somebody had to do it. So we are those Egypts, I suppose. Yeah. I promised to stay serious today, and I'm not managing it, am I? Anyway, so just a few other things that we do in Skibbereen Heritage Centre. Like I said, we facilitate 3 US colleges to come to Skibbereen every year on study abroads. Maryland, that I mentioned already. We also have Defiance College, Ohio, and the College of Charleston, and they stay in Skibbereen for a prolonged period. The Maryland crew stay here for about 8 weeks. We get an awful lot of individual colleges for the day, but these crews stay and we support them. We did another lovely project, and the proud mammy of 823 children. So this was, again, another rush of blood to the head. It was the decade of centenaries, and I just kind of thought, oh, can you imagine all the stories that are out there? So we came up with this model of creating a school folklore project modeled on the 1937 school folklore, which I'm sure you're all familiar with and have used. But the idea was that these kids would go out and ask about the 1916 to 23 period, and of course West Cork was the hotbed of revolution. So over 4 years we went into 48 schools and 823 children participated. And oh my God, the stories were amazing, absolutely amazing. And I remember at the very launch, what was really gratifying again was, like, I'll tell you what the launch happened to be. A lot of the people that had told the stories at this stage were dead. So the children's parents were coming up to us and saying, my father told this to my son, never told me the story, and I never heard it, and now my father is dead, so we're really glad we have this story. So we get all these small stories, as I tagged it, small stories about big history. So they're on the website as well. I'll show you how that works. So out of that on the website, I'll show you how that works in a minute. Margaret and I then published a book of extracts that went all over the world. David McCullough there on the left-hand side, or at the RTE History Show, adopted it and took it around Ireland because it was the only such project in Ireland. And we also made a travelling exhibition to go around the libraries, supported by the council, bottom right-hand slide. So all the kids got to go into their local library and see themselves up there, which was really, really cool. So I'll show you how to work that in a minute. It's really interesting. So over the years we've done many other events as well. First National Family Commemoration held in Skibbereen in 2009. We coordinated that. So Cultus, the band, Heritage Weeks, Culture Night, Theatre Society, you know, all different kinds of projects. We still have an involvement in Lochine as well. I have a big old grow for Lochine myself. And so the guy on the slide there with me, Rob McCallan, he's now professor in the School of Bees in UCC, and Rob and I have worked together for years and rebuilt the wall down at Lochine, the famine wall there. But he also did a conference back in 2011, and I was supposed to put together an exhibition for this conference, and it ended up being a book, which is the top book. And then I published another one a couple of years later based on a master's thesis. But we still do a lot of things together. And one of them is our annual Touch Tanks event down at Lochine. About 400 kids come to it every year, and it's just amazing. It's a gorgeous day. All the kids come and see the species. So that's us winning the Heritage Council Award on that, for that County Award last year. And we have quite a few more awards over the years. The Guna Das has had to go on a few times, but for us, I think the most important award is the one on the left-hand side. It's the TripAdvisor Traveller's Choice Award that puts us in the top 10% of visitor attractions in the world over the last 6 years. We're a tiny little centre, tiny crew, and we really try hard, so it means the world to know that what we're doing resonates with people. So that's it, folks, on a little bit of background so you know that I'm not